For Linda, that day was a special day that would determine her daughter's future. In the morning, spread across the living room table was a torn blue dress. It didn't look like a mere accident. Right beside it, her mother-in-law stood quietly with tears welling in her eyes. But the unease that had been building in Linda's chest refused to believe those tears. The midnight phone calls, the sewing tools subtly moved out of place, and then, the certain diary she found upstairs. This would tear away the family's masks and change everything. A quiet residential neighborhood on the outskirts of Columbus, Ohio. The autumn twilight painted Linda Howard's living room in gentle shades of orange. 43-year-old Linda was wrestling with deep blue fabric spread across the dining table. It was the final work to complete her daughter Jessica's contemporary dance costume for the state competition the day after. "Mom, how much longer until it's finished?" 17-year-old Jessica called out with concern, despite being buried in a mountain of homework. For the high school senior, this state competition was a stage that would determine her life's direction. A scholarship offer from the Chicago School of the Arts depended on the results of this competition. 30 more minutes. "Don't worry," Linda answered with a smile, though internally she was racing against time. Her meticulousness as a former bank employee was paying off, and the work was progressing as planned. However, something was bothering her. The sewing box that she was certain she had placed there last night had somehow shifted its position slightly. 6 p.m. The sound of the front door opening echoed through the house. "I'm home," came Michael's voice. At 45, he worked as a sales manager at a local insurance company, staying late every day. As tired footsteps echoed down the hallway, Linda felt a strange uneasiness. Usually he would come home alone, but that day was different. "Linda, Mom is with me too." Just as she suspected. Emerging from the entrance was her mother-in-law, Barbara Howard. Despite being 71, her posture remained straight, still maintaining the dignity of a former professional ballet dancer. When she appeared, the air in the living room somehow changed. Linda felt an inexplicable tension run through her. "Oh, Jessica's dress?" Barbara's eyes fell upon the costume on the table. That gaze was clearly different from the warm concern a grandmother should show for her granddaughter's big day. It had the sharpness of a bird of prey sizing up its target. "It's very beautiful," she said gently. However, Linda's intuition was sounding an alarm. Barbara's gaze lingered abnormally long, observing every detail of the dress as if licking it with her eyes. "Tomorrow is an important day." "But..." Barbara cut off her words. A subtle silence flowed through the living room. "Long ago, I could dance too." Professionally, with a regional theater company, her voice mixed melancholy for lost glory with dissatisfaction toward the present. Linda had noticed this. Barbara's stories about the old days always contained veiled criticisms of the present. Jessica, for some reason, averted her gaze from her grandmother. Linda felt a small sense of unease at this gesture. Why would a granddaughter who would normally happily listen to her grandmother's stories take such an avoidant attitude? "Jessica, go change quickly so we can have dinner." Michael hurriedly changed the subject. His voice clearly contained agitation. Was he trying to hide something by interrupting his mother's story? At the dinner table, further unease accumulated. Barbara's praise for the cooking contained subtle criticism at the edges. "It's okay, I suppose," or, "It could have used a bit more salt," and such. While superficially playing the kind mother-in-law, she was actually trying to seize control. And what was decisive was the gaze Barbara directed toward Jessica. Rather than affection, it was more like looking at a possession, a dominating stare. Jessica seemed to sense this acutely, clearly shrinking in her grandmother's presence. "Jessica, shall I come watch tomorrow's rehearsal?" At Barbara's suggestion, Jessica's expression clouded for a moment. Rehearsal is off limits to anyone not involved." Jessica's response was polite but clearly contained rejection. I see, how unfortunate. Barbara's smile froze for just an instant. At that moment, Linda was certain. Barbara's affection was not healthy. 10 p.m. After Barbara left, Linda was alone cleaning up the living room. There she noticed that her sewing tools had moved again. The scissors were in particular placed at a subtly different angle. Even more puzzling was that the album containing photos of Jessica's past costumes had been taken out from the bookshelf. When Barbara had gone to the bathroom, there was a time when she was alone in the living room. During that time, was she searching through things? Linda's observational skills as a former bank employee recorded every small change. Each thing was trivial on its own, but when accumulated, a pattern clearly emerged. 11:30 p.m. As Linda got into bed, she heard old classical music coming from the next room. It was from Michael's room. He had no hobby of listening to such music, which meant he was on the phone with someone. And fragments of conversation she could faintly hear, about tomorrow. Just as you said, Mom. An inexplicable anxiety spread through Linda's chest. Her husband was consulting with someone late at night about the next day. That person was his mom. She wanted to think it was all just coincidence. However, Linda's intuition was definitely sending danger signals. They appeared to be planning something before the following day's state competition. As wind howled outside the windows and Ohio's long night deepened, Linda couldn't fall asleep. Why did she have to be struck by such anxiety before the important day that would stake her beloved daughter's life? However, Linda at this time didn't yet know. These small feelings of unease were merely harbingers of the terrible truth that would unfold the next day. The morning of the state competition. Linda woke at 6 a.m. As if to shake off last night's anxious feelings, she prepared a special breakfast for Jessica. Pancakes and fresh fruits, and her daughter's favorite honey tea. She wanted to make the day as perfect as possible. Good morning, Mom. Jessica came down the stairs. Her face was a mixture of tension and excitement. The day has come. Linda embraced her daughter. This was the day her daughter, whom she had raised for 17 years, would stand on life's important stage. As a mother, she felt unparalleled pride. 8 a.m. Michael and Barbara appeared together in the living room. Her mother-in-law was still watching Jessica with that somehow probing gaze this morning too. Today's the big day, Jessica. Barbara's voice carried something calculated, contrary to the superficial words of celebration. I need to do a final check of the dress. When Linda said this, Barbara stood up. Shall I help? I used to handle stage costumes long ago. At this offer, Linda felt wariness in her heart. The unease from the previous night grew stronger at that moment. It's fine. It's already finished, she politely declined, but for an instant, displeasure crossed Barbara's expression. It was the reaction of someone unaccustomed to being rejected. 9:30 a.m. Linda was to head to the dance school for final preparations. Time adjustments for rehearsal and meetings with other parents remained. I'll be back in 2 hours. Please take care of the dress, she called to Michael and Barbara at the entrance. Michael nodded vaguely, but somehow wouldn't meet her eyes. Take care. Barbara's voice was gentle, but Linda couldn't shake the feeling that something lurked behind that smile. As they were heading to the dance school by car, Linda's cell phone rang. It was her neighbor, April Chen. Linda, are you okay? April's voice clearly contained worry. Having worked as a social worker for 20 years, she possessed sharp insight for detecting abnormal family dynamics. Earlier, I saw Barbara outside alone in the yard, walking around muttering something. She seemed strange. An unpleasant premonition ran through Linda's chest. What kind of things was she saying? I couldn't hear clearly, but I caught words like, this time for sure, and a obstacle. Linda, is something wrong? At April's question, Linda told her about all the unease she'd felt since the previous night. The changed positions of sewing tools, Barbara's abnormal gaze, and her husband's midnight phone call. Linda, you should go home right now. In my experience, these are dangerous signs. April's voice carried the conviction of a professional. Hurrying home, Linda's anxiety reached its peak. Why was this happening on such an important day? Why would something be planned within the family on the day that would determine Jessica's future? 11:15 a.m. When Linda returned home, an eerie silence enveloped the house. The moment she entered the living room, Linda's blood ran cold. Jessica's beautiful blue dress lay brutally torn across the table. This was clearly not a mere accident, but obvious intentional destruction. It looked like it was cut intentionally with scissors, too straight and calculated to be accidental. Oh, Linda, she turned to see Barbara standing there with tears streaming down her face. However, Linda's intuition detected theatrical elements in those tears. I'm sorry, truly sorry. My hand slipped. Barbara's explanation contained far too many contradictions. Could someone's hand simply slipping create such deep cuts in fabric? Moreover, the scissors had been properly returned to their original position. How did your hand slip? At Linda's question, Barbara was momentarily at a loss for words. I thought I'd adjust the hem of the dress, but the scissors. Just then, Jessica came running down the stairs. The moment she saw the torn dress, her face went pale. Grandma, not again. The instant Jessica started to say something, she hastily shut her mouth. As if she'd almost said something she shouldn't have. Again? At Linda's inquiry, Jessica looked at her grandmother with fearful eyes. What happened before? When Linda asked again, Michael hurriedly entered from the front door. What's wrong? Seeing the situation, Michael immediately moved to defend his mother. Mom didn't mean any harm. This must have been an accident. In this moment, Linda's suspicion turned to certainty. Her husband had immediately defended his mother without even checking the situation. As if it had been rehearsed beforehand. An accident? This? Linda picked up the torn dress. The precision of the tears, the sharpness of the cuts, everything told the story of a planned crime. Mom. Jessica's voice was trembling. The moment Linda saw her daughter's expression, she understood. This wasn't the first time. There had probably been similar accidents in the past. Jessica, tell me honestly. Has Grandma done something like this before? Her daughter looked back and forth between her grandmother and father, then nodded slightly. At last year's recital too, the laces on my dance shoes were cut. The year before that, my leotard got paint on it. At Jessica's testimony, Barbara's face stiffened for a moment. That was coincidental. But no one believed those words anymore. 11:45 a.m. 3.5 hours until the competition began. Linda made her decision. The time had come to uncover the truth of this situation and take action to protect her daughter. Michael, did you know about this too? At her direct question to her husband, Michael couldn't hide his agitation. Just then, Linda's cell phone rang. It was April. Linda, how did it go? April, help me. You were right. Linda's voice was shaking, but at the same time filled with firm resolve. There was no turning back. The time had come to face the truth. Noon. 3 hours remaining until the competition. Linda's heart was filled with anger and despair, but her cool analytical skills as a former bank employee supported her. This wasn't the time to be swept away by emotion. She had to uncover the truth. Jessica, call the dance school and tell them it's an emergency, Linda instructed her daughter while making her decision. The time had come to search Barbara's room. Linda, what are you planning to do? Michael tried to stop her in panic, but Linda's resolve was unwavering. I'm going to find out the truth. What your mother is really doing. Barbara was still in the living room downstairs, continuing her theatrical tears. This was her chance. Barbara's room on the second floor. The moment Linda put her hand on the doorknob, tension ran through her entire body. She was certain that all the answers lay inside this room. Entering the room, what first caught her eye were neatly arranged dance-related books and photographs. Ballet performance programs. From the 1970s, photos of young Barbara dancing on stage. Everything told the story of her past glory. However, the moment she opened the bedside table drawer, Linda's blood froze. There was Linda's own diary. Private contents, her feelings about Jessica, her relationship with Michael, worries about household finances. Everything was marked with red pen, with Barbara's own comments written in. Soft mother, spoils Jessica too much, this woman is not suitable for our family. Linda's hands trembled. Her privacy had been violated to this extent. Even more terrifying, numerous photos of Jessica and her dance costumes were stored there. As if she had been surveilling them, her daughter's growth process was recorded in detail. And then she discovered the decisive evidence. Barbara's own diary. Their chilling contents were written in meticulous handwriting. October 15, 2024, Linda is spoiling Jessica. That child should have been raised by me. If Linda weren't here, Jessica would love me more. November 3rd, cut the laces of Jessica's dance shoes. It was amusing to watch Linda panic. But it's not enough yet. November 20th, next time I'll accidentally spill paint on her leotard. If I make it look like an accident, no one will suspect. December 2nd, Michael's with me. When I told him about the plan to drive Linda out, he understood. Blood is thicker than water. Tomorrow is Jessica's important competition. This time I'll interfere perfectly. If I tear that dress, Linda will never recover. Linda read through every page with trembling hands holding the diary. There was a detailed record of systematic harassment over the past 2 years. Numerous calculated crimes disguised as accidental incidents. Even more terrifying was her exchanges with Michael. Michael listens well to what I say. I'm gradually making him dissatisfied with Linda. Soon, I'll be able to drive that woman out of the house. Linda's cell phone suddenly rang. Looking at the screen with shaking hands, it was a call from April. Linda, are you okay? Mrs. Johnson passed by earlier and got worried. She says she heard loud voices. April, I found something unbelievable. Barbara's diary. Everything was planned. She could hear April gasp on the other end of the phone. Linda, take photos of that diary right away. Keep it as evidence. Just then, she heard footsteps from downstairs. Barbara was coming up. As she hurriedly tried to return the diary to its original position, there was another shocking discovery. Printouts of message history from Michael's cell phone. There was a record of terrifying conversations exchanged between her husband and Barbara. Michael, let's think of a way to drive Linda out. That woman is not worthy of our family. Yeah. You're right, Mom. Linda spoils Jessica too much. I will destroy Linda before tomorrow's competition. Something she will never recover from. But won't Jessica get hurt? Sometimes, a little pain may be necessary. In the long term, it will be good for Jessica. I will guide her correctly. Got it, Mom. I'll leave it to you then. Linda's entire body trembled. The husband she thought she loved had been conspiring with his mother to bring her down. And they were even using her daughter to do it. The footsteps were getting closer. Linda hurriedly took photos of the diary and message pages with her smartphone. Linda, what are you doing? She turned to see Barbara standing there. Her tears had stopped, and cold anger floated in her expression. I was reading your diary. Linda's voice was quiet but filled with firm anger. That's my private business. Rich words from someone who was stealing and reading my diary. Barbara's face momentarily twisted with agitation. However, it quickly changed to an expression as if she was brazen it out. I was thinking of what's best for the family. For the family? Hurting my daughter is for the family. Just then, they heard the sound of someone running up the stairs. It was Michael and Jessica. What's happening? Michael entered the room, but Linda stared at her husband with cold eyes. You knew about it too. All of it. Linda, it's a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? This is a misunderstanding? Linda thrust her smartphone screen at her husband. Seeing the photo of the message history, Michael's face went pale. Mom, what's happening? Jessica asked anxiously. Jessica, your grandmother and father were trying to drive Mommy out of the house. Using you. Jessica's face changed to an expression of disbelief. That can't be. But it's okay, now. Because I know the truth. Linda's voice was filled with new resolve. There was no turning back now. The time to fight had come. 1 p.m. 2 hours until the competition began. However, a more important battle for Linda was about to begin. From the moment the truth was revealed, something changed within Linda. Her strong will as a mother broke through the fear that had been controlling her. Jessica, pack your things. Linda's voice was quiet but filled with firm determination. Where are we going, Mom? To April's house. We'll stay there tonight. And tomorrow morning, I'm consulting with a lawyer. Barbara and Michael's faces went pale. They understood that Linda was seriously going to take action. Linda, wait. Michael tried to stop her in panic, but Linda didn't look back. I'll be waiting at the competition venue. I intend to watch Jessica's performance. But I don't know about after that. Linda and Jessica arrived at April's house. Seeing the torn dress, April immediately sprang into action. It's okay, I can fix it. I'm good at sewing. Through April's skillful hands, the dress was beautifully restored. However, even more important was her analysis based on professional knowledge. Linda, this is clearly psychological abuse. Barbara's behavior patterns are typical symptoms shown by controlling mothers-in-law. Jessica, did your grandmother say anything else to you? Jessica opened her heavy mouth. Your mother is too soft. I will guide you correctly. Let's keep this secret from your mother. She always said things like that. And, your father listens to what I say, so your mother should obey me too. This is an isolation technique. She's trying to divide the mother-daughter relationship. April's expression became stern. Linda was calmly planning her next actions while checking the evidence photos. It was important to proceed step by step without being swept away by emotions. April, do you have any former colleagues still working in child protective services? I do. I'll contact them right away. Meanwhile, Michael, left behind at home, was facing the reality of losing his wife and daughter. In the now empty living room, Michael's phone rang. It was his supervisor, Dave Smith. Michael, you seemed strange this morning. Are you okay? Yeah, Dave. Actually, there are problems at home. I won't ask for details, but take care of your family. There's always more work, but once you lose family, they don't come back. After hanging up, Michael also received a message from his colleague Jim Anderson. Michael, I heard you on the phone today saying Mom and convince Linda. Is your family okay? To be frank, it's abnormal for a 45-year-old man to talk about his mother all the time at work. Isn't Linda a wonderful woman? Another message arrived from colleague Tom. I saw Linda in town earlier. She looked really haggard and was crying. Did you do something? Reading his colleagues' messages, Michael was forced to look at his own actions objectively for the first time. Even at work, there were people who had noticed his abnormality. Just then, Barbara appeared in the living room. Michael, Linda, and Jessica have left. Now we can be alone together. The moment Michael saw Barbara's satisfied expression, something snapped inside him. We were wrong, Mom. It's for the family. That woman was in our way. Family? Linda and Jessica are my family too. Blood ties are most important, aren't they? I'm the one who raised you. In this moment, Michael understood the meaning of his colleague's words. The abnormality of a 45-year-old man still being under his mother's control. At the competition venue, important testimonies were being revealed one after another. Mary Wilson, Barbara's former dance companion, was telling the truth to those involved. I've known Barbara for 40 years. We were in the same theater company. She's always had a jealous personality. She can't stand others becoming successful. She shows abnormal hostility, especially toward people younger and more talented than herself. The dance instructor, Carol Johnson, also testified. Actually, I thought the past accidents were unnatural too. When Jessica's shoes were cut, it was such a clean straight line. How could that be an accident? Neighborhood residents also began testifying one after another. I'd been concerned about Barbara's behavior for a while. I once heard her call Linda that woman. You could see that Jessica was always tense in front of her grandmother. As the testimonies accumulated, Barbara's abnormality was brought into sharp relief. At home, Michael was finally confronting his mother. Mother, I'm already 45 years old. I have to protect my own family myself. What are you saying, my son? I am your real family. No. My family is Linda and Jessica. Your control is over. Barbara's face changed in an instant. The mask of the gentle mother peeled away, revealing cold anger. You're betraying me too? Do you know how much I've sacrificed for you? I never asked for those sacrifices. That's something you did on your own. Michael stood up and headed for the entrance. Where are you going? To apologize to my wife and daughter. And to fight to protect them. However, Barbara didn't give up. My son, that woman has brainwashed you. Without me, you can't do anything. That's enough, Mother. Michael's voice had a strength it had never had before. On his way to April's house, Michael was reflecting on his life. When had he started obeying his mother? When had he started prioritizing his mother over his wife? In front of April's house, Michael took a deep breath. The front door opened and Jessica appeared, wearing the beautifully restored dress. Dad. Her daughter's eyes held disappointment and sadness. Jessica, your dad was wrong. I'm truly sorry I couldn't do what's right for you and Mom. Then Linda appeared. Michael, what are you doing here now? Linda, please listen to me. I was completely wrong. I've finally woken up. However, Linda's answer was cold. Right now, I want to focus on Jessica's competition. Family talk can wait. The three headed to the venue. However, by this time, the family's fate had already begun to change dramatically. The power of truth was about to collapse the structure of lies and control that had been built up over years. The competition venue was filled with tension. 15 minutes until Jessica's performance began. Wearing the restored blue dress, she radiated a different kind of brilliance than before. Having overcome difficulties, her inner strength was now showing on the surface. Linda was watching her daughter from the audience seats. Michael sat beside her, but there was a deep gulf between them. Even after hearing her husband's apology, Linda's heart couldn't be moved easily. Just then, an unexpected figure appeared at the venue entrance. It was Barbara. She appeared with a cane, acting out a frail appearance as if she were the victim. She began speaking to the people around her in a thin voice. "Everyone, I apologize for showing our family's shame. I seem to be developing dementia, and I accidentally tore my granddaughter's dress." Barbara's performance was skillful. She was trying to elicit sympathy with the scenario of an elderly grandmother who had hurt her granddaughter due to illness. However, Linda stood up. "Barbara, you don't have dementia, do you?" Linda's voice echoed through the venue. In the flowing silence, she took out her smartphone. "There's something I'd like everyone to hear." What Linda read aloud was the contents of Barbara's diary. "Tomorrow is Jessica's important competition. This time I'll interfere perfectly. If I tear that dress, Linda will never recover." The venue stirred. Barbara's face went pale. "And this is an exchange of messages with her son Michael." Linda continued reading. "Michael, I will deliver the decisive blow at tomorrow's competition. Something Linda will never recover from." "I understand, Mom. I'll leave it to you." The venue became chaotic. The audience's gazes turned toward Barbara and Michael all at once. Just then, Mary Wilson stood up. "Everyone, I've known Barbara for 40 years. This behavior isn't her first time. She's always shown abnormal obsession with destroying other people's happiness." April Chin also stood to testify. "I'm a former social worker. Barbara's behavior patterns clearly show characteristics of planned psychological abuse." The dance instructor Carol Johnson also spoke up. "For the past 2 years, all the accidents that happened to Jessica were unnatural. We had been vaguely aware." As the testimonies continued one after another, Barbara was gradually cornered. "That's not. I was thinking of the family." However, no one believed her words anymore. Then the competition host made an important announcement. "Everyone, there's a special announcement from the judges." The head judge stood up. "We received an explanation regarding Jessica Howard's situation beforehand. In such difficult circumstances, we were deeply moved by her attitude of not losing her motivation to perform and participating after repairing her dress. Therefore, we would like to present a special award before her performance. The Courage to Overcome Adversity Award." Loud applause echoed through the venue. Tears welled up in Jessica's eyes. Barbara understood that her plan had completely backfired. Instead of bringing down her granddaughter, she had turned her into a hero. Just then, Barbara played her final card. "Linda, please. Forgive me." She dropped to her knees and clung to Linda's feet. It was a calculated performance in front of all the watching people. "I'm old now. I'm afraid of being alone. I was afraid of my son being taken away, so I did crazy things. Please, let's be a family." However, Linda's answer was clear. "Barbara, you tormented my daughter continuously for 2 years. That wasn't from fear, but from planned malice. I will never forgive someone who hurt my daughter." Linda's voice was quiet but filled with firm resolve. The people in the venue applauded Linda's words. Many were moved by her stance of protecting her dignity as a mother, as a woman, and as a human being. Michael stood up. "Mother, that's enough. My son. My family is Linda and Jessica. You've hurt them. You're no longer part of our family." Barbara's face twisted in despair at Michael's words. She understood that she had lost her son too. However, Linda looked at Michael and said, "Michael, don't forget that you were also an accomplice. Apologizing now doesn't mean I can easily forgive you. If you truly care about your family, show it through your actions from now on." Just then, Jessica's performance began. Standing on stage, she expressed through dance all her past suffering, fear, and today's sense of liberation. The audience watched with bated breath. When the performance ended, the venue was enveloped in thunderous applause. The judges also stood up and applauded. The results were then announced. Jessica magnificently won the gold medal. Watching her daughter on the podium, Linda became certain. She had made the right choice. Barbara left the venue alone. No one saw her off. It was the natural result of her own malice. After the competition ended, Linda and Jessica were congratulated by many people. Linda, I was moved by your courage. Jessica, congratulations. Surrounded by warm words, Linda thought about the importance of having the courage to fight rather than hiding the truth. Michael watched his wife and daughter from a distance. He finally understood that it would take a long time and real change to win them back. On the way home, Jessica said to Linda, "Mom, thank you for protecting me." "Of course. You're my precious daughter. Mom, you've become strong." Linda smiled. This day had taught her that true strength means fighting to protect those you love. The setting sun gently illuminated their silhouettes from behind. With the victory of truth and hope for a new life in their hearts, the mother and daughter continued walking. 3 months later, gentle morning sunlight streamed into the new apartment on the outskirts of Columbus. This 2-bedroom room where Linda and Jessica lived was much smaller than their previous house, but for the two of them it was a free and peaceful sanctuary. While brewing coffee in the kitchen, Linda gazed out the window. In the small garden, colorful flowers she had planted were blooming. Roses, tulips, marigolds. Each possessed different beauty while blooming in harmony. "Good morning, Mom," Jessica came down the stairs. Seeing her holding the acceptance letter from the Chicago School of the Arts, Linda's heart warmed again. The gold medal from that competition had led to winning the scholarship. "Today's the college registration, right?" "Yeah. You'll come with me, won't you?" "Of course." Their conversation was natural, without any trace of the former tension. In the home freed from Barbara's control, true peace had returned. On the small living room table, materials from Linda's new job were laid out. After she started working part-time at a small local accounting firm, she has now been welcomed as a full-time employee. Her experience as a former bank employee and the mental strength gained from overcoming difficulties had been recognized. "Mrs. Howard, with your kind of experience, I'm sure you can help other female clients," the manager had told her, and for the first time Linda felt that her experiences had meaning. Counseling women struggling with household finances had become a new source of fulfillment. Several letters had arrived in the mailbox that day. Among them was an envelope with familiar handwriting. It was from Barbara. Without hesitation, Linda threw the letter into the trash without opening it. There was no need for her to be bound by the past anymore. "Mom, that was something I don't need to see." Jessica understood too. There was no need to bring past poison into their new life. At 10 a.m., the doorbell rang. April Chen had come to visit with homemade cookies. "Linda, how are you doing?" "I'm doing well, thanks to you." "April, thank you so much." Without April's support that day, Linda might have had to fight alone. She came to deeply understand the value of having a true friend. "Jessica, how are your college preparations going?" "Going well. I'm looking forward to dancing freely in the new environment." There was no longer any shadow of fear in Jessica's expression. Completely freed from the psychological pressure from her grandmother, she had regained her natural brightness. "More than that, tell me about Linda's new job." "Actually, yesterday I counseled a woman considering divorce. She was also troubled by her relationship with her mother-in-law. My experience seemed to help her a little." April smiled. "Your strength is becoming hope for others." At 2 p.m., Linda's cell phone rang. It was Michael. Over these 3 months, contact from her ex-husband came about once a week. It was mostly about trivial things, such as arranging his visits to meet Jessica. Linda, I need to talk. What? I've decided to receive counseling. I want to start treatment for having been too dependent on my mother. Michael's voice had a seriousness it had never had before. And I've completely cut ties with her. I'm refusing all contact from her senior living facility. Linda didn't answer. I want to win you and Jessica back. I don't mind if it takes time. Michael, I've heard enough words. Show it through actions. After hanging up, Linda felt complicated emotions. Her love for her husband hadn't completely disappeared. However, trust couldn't be easily restored. In the evening, she and Jessica went shopping at the supermarket together. Before, she had chosen ingredients based on Barbara's preferences, but now they could freely choose what they liked. Mom, what should we have tonight? How about your favorite pasta? Sounds good. It was a small thing, but this kind of freedom was more precious than anything. On the way home, they happened to meet Michael's colleague Jim. Good work today, Linda. Hello, Jim. I'm sorry about Michael's situation. We were too late to notice what was truly happening. No, thanks to you speaking up in the end, Michael was able to wake up too. He's desperately trying to change now. Going to counseling, reconsidering his relationship with his mother. From Jim's words, she could understand that Michael was seriously trying to change. But please don't rush. Decide at your and Jessica's pace. That night, in the apartment living room, the two were having dinner. Outside the window, the flowers Linda had planted were blooming beautifully even in the evening darkness. Mom, I don't think I'll forget that day, Jessica suddenly spoke up. The day of the competition, when you protected me. When you clearly said in front of everyone, I will never forgive someone who hurt my daughter. I just did what was natural. But that's when I understood what it really means to be loved. You've given me unconditional love. Grandma's love was conditional on me doing what she wanted. At Jessica's words, tears welled up in Linda's eyes. Mom, you've become strong. You too. We've become strong together. The following week, Linda was meeting with a new client at work. She was a woman in her 30s who was seriously troubled by her relationship with her husband's mother. Your situation sounds similar to mine. Linda shared a little of her own experience. While avoiding details, she was able to give hope to the woman. But you can fight, can't you? To protect your family. When necessary, sometimes you have to fight. But you're not alone. There are people who will support you. That night, Linda wrote in her diary. A new diary, different from the one Barbara had stolen and read. Living each day is precious. Not being bound by past pain, continuing to hold hope for the future. And never forgetting the courage to fight to protect those you love. These are what I learned from that experience. Just because someone is family doesn't mean everything is permissible. True affection means putting the other person's happiness first. I understand that now. And if my experience can become hope for someone else, then perhaps that suffering had meaning too. Outside the window, wind blew gently. The flowers swayed quietly. Linda smiled. She had obtained the true peace that comes after overcoming difficulties. And now, she can use that experience for the benefit of others. Tomorrow, another new day will begin. The quiet and certain journey of regeneration for the mother and daughter will then continue.